The Barrie Public Library is a fixture in Barrie's diverse cultural and educational scene. It arranges various programming for kids, adults, and people from various backgrounds. However, Barrie does not have a sufficient number of libraries for its population. For example, Barrie has only 3 libraries for more than 150,000 people, while nearby Innisfil, with one-third of Barrie's population, has the same number of libraries. I sat down with Barrie Public Library CEO Lauren Jessop to talk about the importance of the library system, expansion plans, a recent City Council motion, and her plans to work with all stakeholders to provide quality service for all Barrie residents. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining me today. So the first thing, how old is the library system in the city of Barrie?
I think the library has been in Barrie for a long time, since the late 1800s, as a mechanics institute, how a lot of public libraries started. But as a public library in Barrie, we've been here, I want to say 1913, I think.
And so this is the oldest library?
Yeah, so we used to be situated in the building where the McLaren Art Center is now, so that's an old Carnegie library, and then we outgrew that space, and as well there was a children's library that was part of City Hall at one point, and then we've been in this building since 1996, and we opened the Painswick Library in 2012, I think. And then we opened our location in the Holly neighborhood in 2022.
So we have now 3 libraries, and this is the main library.
Yes.
So this is located in near downtown, Ward 1 and Ward 2. So where are the other 2 libraries are located?
So the other 2 libraries, Painswick is in Ward 9, and the Holly Library is in Ward 7.
And in terms of membership, how many members the library has in a ballpark?
Yeah, it fluctuates. People move out of the city and come into the city, so it fluctuates. We're usually sitting around 40,000 or so of active members.
Wow, that's almost 1/3.
Yeah, about 1/3, and we do expect that there are a lot of households where one member of the family has a library card, but multiple people in the household are using it. So if you counted the number of individuals using the library, it's quite a lot more.
Yeah, because until a few months back only I had the library card. Right. I used to borrow for my son and wife. Now he got his own library card with a picture. Yeah. And so what I like when after I moved here in Barrie, around 3 years back, what I have noticed is as I moved in, Barrie, has becoming more and more diverse. I was, when my son was in the school, he was the only, pretty much non-white kid in his class. But there are now more and more students. I see same in the library, and I see the same in terms of the library programs. You have the Holy Book reading, you have the Ramadan book reading, different kind of events. So how has the library changed in the last few years in terms of patrons, but at the same time in terms of the programming and the staff?
Sure. So I would say in all ways it's become more diverse. So like you said, we're offering more programs to support newcomers to Canada, as well as the diverse populations that have been here longer. And almost always those programs are done in partnership with those groups, so that they are represented carefully and respectfully, and in the right ways, and making sure that we reach those populations as well, so they can help us to promote those programs. I would say too, in terms of our staff, lots of more diversity as well. We're still predominantly women working here, but in terms of diversity in the staff, especially in some of our younger student workers, we're seeing a lot more diversity in those areas. So it's great to see, and I think people, when they come into the library, they like to see themselves reflected in the people who work here as well.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to the women in the leadership at the library point later on. But how, one of the programs I observed downstairs, in that open room, and I believe that's an indigenous name.
Yeah, and Enjamanjading.
Yeah.
So it's in English it means the gathering place.
And so I noticed a few times there are specially open sessions for the newcomers where they come in, they improve their English language and get familiar with the Canadian culture. So when did that program started, and then what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, I can't for certain say how long English Conversation Circle has been running. Quite a long time, and it fluctuates over time how busy it is and how many people are there. That one is run by volunteers, so we bring in volunteers to help us with that one. And we have heard some really nice success stories coming out of that program where people make friends. They find others in their community. We've also had some staff who started with us as coming to English Conversation Circle, and then they became a page, and then they became a library associate. So working for us as well as participating in the program. So it's nice to see people engaged in the community in that way, and I think it's a good spot for newcomers to start. Not only to just practice their English and learn more about the community, but to learn about the library and what it offers, and sort of immerse themselves in the community.
And because one of the interviews our another reporter did, Jaya, she interviewed Saima, who did the Ramadan story reading, and she shared this experience right from the moment she approached the library. Because her son, she has been coming here, she said, with her son, and she attended other programs, like Hindus or Christian or other community programs, and then her son asked her, why not Ramadan? And then she approached the library, and she said, right from the moment she approached the library until the event was organized, she felt so welcome.
Oh, good.
In the library system, and that also felt her welcome in the city.
Nice.
That it's because the library, it's representation of the city. It's 1/3 of the, as you said in the fact, residents are the members. And if there is a program, anybody can participate, anybody can come in, so that gives the visibility. So how, in terms of organization, how you reach out to the community members, or community members reach out, to the library in terms of setting up the program? Because I'm trying to understand it's, now the diversity is even increasing. Now there are maybe, Sikh populations, or the Buddhist, or the Jewish, so how do you encourage that?
Yeah, so we participate in a lot of community organizations and community meetings, so like the local immigration partnership, for example. So that's an opportunity for us to know more about which communities are coming in, but we also welcome suggestions. So I think the best part about a public library is we are always changing to meet the changing needs of the community. So the library from last year doesn't look the same as the library from this year, because the needs are changing, and so we're able to adapt our programs for the people that are coming in. So if people come, someone says, why don't you do this? Then we take that into account, and if we have capacity, and if we think that there is enough of a need to offer that program, then we'll absolutely consider it. So those kinds of suggestions from the public are welcome and needed to make sure that we're not missing things. We can't be everywhere, and so as much as we try to, we can't be everywhere and always know everything that's going on. So we rely on sometimes the public helping us out.
Yeah, so you talked about the capacity, if you have the capacity. As I said, I lived in Mississauga before, in Arlington, Massachusetts. One thing I noticed, in Mississauga, if you see, there are so many libraries. Every corner has a library, and they are like not a smaller library like the Holly branch. Really big library system. Even I visited Innisfil library system. I visited Midland library system, and I went there to cover even. Barrie has, at least I think, fewer libraries given the population. Innisfil, I'm not sure how much is the Midland is 18,000 people. The main branch is 2 or 3 story branch. So the Barrie has only 3 libraries for 150,000 people.
Yeah, so 2018, I think, we worked with the city to create what's called a master facilities plan. So it goes out to 2030, I think, and it shows, we worked with the city and a consultant and an architect to try to look at the projected population in Barrie and what we would need going forward so that we could plan for those locations. So the plan shows that we should have 6 for the population. We should have 6 locations for the population in Barrie. And, those are marked. There's one that, proposed kind of in the north end, somewhere in the north end, as well as in the south end of Barrie. So, and in coordination with whatever happens in terms of recreation center in the south end where all the building is happening. So whatever happens there, a library is planned for that location. So I think those plans are still in flux and changing, as the city looks at different options. So, but we do have plans going forward to add more locations as the city grows. But we are below the provincial sort of average for space per capita.
So has there any initiatives from your side, from the library side, in terms of, you said, there are a couple of libraries planned, north end and south end, but are there any continuous, discussions with the city hall, with the mayor, council?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they are aware that we're under-resourced in a lot of areas of the city, and we're doing things, what we can to mitigate that. So, I mean, the Holly Library was part of that plan to make sure that we had more coverage in other areas, as well as adding an outreach van as part of our service to make it easier for our staff to get to other places in the city, to get to parks and rec centers and places where we can provide library service, as well as the kiosks that we've got at East Bayfield and Allendale. Those are another way that we're trying to extend our service without necessarily needing the full expense of a branch. Not to say we wouldn't love that, but we understand that fiscal restraints is difficult. Obviously, it's difficult not only to build a location but to operate one. So we're patient, but always advocating whenever we can and whenever we get a chance to. So. And making sure that council sees that our programs are very busy and our circulation of materials is always increasing, just so that they see that usage. So we've started putting out an annual report, so we can showcase all of the great work that we're doing, just to make sure that everybody, all of our stakeholders are aware of what we're doing and are more receptive to increasing our footprint in the city whenever there's an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so the main discussion, as I go around covering various, events, I'm lucky that I live, only 10-minute walk from here, so I can,
nice.
Just walk with my son. Every Saturday we go to the farmers market, and from there, we come here to the library.
Perfect.
But when I talk to other people, when I go, as you said, south end and other part of the city, that's one of the complaints, because the kiosk. One thing I noticed that I worked in private sector before, and the way the lean way the Barrie public library system operates, that I haven't seen anywhere else. I was at the fun fair for my son goes to the school at the fun fair, and there was the small cart or van was there. There was one other event, and I saw so I think that at the Pride Parade there was a van. So I see whenever when we have Truth and Reconciliation Day, always I see Barrie Public. So whenever I go covering event, I see
nice.
Barrie Public Library represented over there. So that's why my question was for the children, because it's as in summer. I was talking to the other staff that. Summer, it's nice out there, but the library is full. There are children, everywhere in the library. Because what I understand from, with my son and from other kids, it offers, safe space to the children to play and, hang out with other kids. That's why my question was about having more branches, because that's what I hear from other parents and other kids, and the teachers I talk to. That's what that kids can go and stay there and play and read books. That's kind of coffee shop for them.
Yeah.
So I will definitely follow up with the council and the mayor and the council about about the location. As we are talking about the children, one thing came out a lot in the council meeting about the children's safety at the library. And Mayor Alex Nuttall a few months back made an announcement at the Meridian Square about making Barrie and downtown safer. That's I told him about my experiences, at least coming here with my son, that we never once had a bad experience. We see people here, people having mental health issues, and other people at the library as anybody else at the library. Everyone should be welcome, because being a non-white person, I can't ignore. Everyone says journalist has to be fair and unbiased, but that's humanly impossible for anyone. And so when I hear the history of Canada or any other nation of the colonization, and how indigenous people or people of color were excluded from the lot of systems. So when there's a discussion about people facing mental health issues, and they are kind of the eco of they should be excluded from the library system. So that's why I asked him the question that I come here with my son. We never had a bad experience here at the library, but I understand library has a security system, has the camera. So can you walk me through a little bit about the whole system and how you look at that? Because those are residents of Barrie as well, and you are legally obliged to serve them. Otherwise, you are violating the charter, Canadian Charter of Human Rights.
For sure. So we do have a patron code of conduct, and so everybody who uses our spaces is required to abide by those rules, essentially, right? So it doesn't matter to us if you come in and you have a mental health issue or an addiction, or you're experiencing homelessness, or whatever your challenges might be, as long as people are behaving in a way that is appropriate under the patron code of conduct, then they're welcome to be here. We have to make sure that the space is welcoming and safe for everyone as best we can. And we've done a lot in the last 5-6 years to try to mitigate some of the challenges that we've been having. So you may have noticed on the main floor of this library, the washrooms are locked. So you have to ask a staff member, security guard, to let you into the washrooms, and that was for people's safety. Like, we were finding that there were too many people using those spaces for drugs and alcohol and just inappropriate uses of the washroom. So having that in place just makes it safer for those people who may be experiencing that, as well as anybody who's using that space. And like I said, we do have security guards, we do have security cameras here. We did at one point take out the security gates. I don't know if you ever saw those at the front. Lots of libraries are removing those. They're more of a barrier than they do prevent any sort of theft. So those have been removed to make the space feel more welcoming for everyone. And most recently, we have added the support of a social worker. So through a partnership with the County of Simcoe, and they've been funding it, and with Catholic Family Services, CFS Counseling and Wellbeing, got to call it the right thing. Through a partnership with CFS and the county, we are offering this program on a pilot basis to the end of December, hoping to extend it further than that, where we have, we call her a community navigator. And so she's in our spaces full-time to provide people with the resources that they need. So anybody can, whether you're experiencing homelessness or any sort of other challenge, even we've had newcomers and people who, their children are experiencing a disability and they need support, anything that you want to chat about with her. And she can refer you to other agencies in the community that can help. So, we were finding sometimes our staff were, they don't have enough time with a busy lineup at the service point. They don't have enough time to sit with somebody for 30 minutes and walk them through, you know, their next steps and things like that, and just an awareness of all of the resources that are available. So having somebody who is a trained social worker, who can de-escalate somebody if they're having a bad day, but also to provide them with the resources that they need. And you know, she does work for CFS, and you know, we have a contract with them to provide this service. So if she needs to, she can rely on her own agency, but also is aware of all the other agencies that provide social services in the community. So all of those things together, I think, are, I do think, making a difference in the way that the library feels. But I also think a lot of people who may say they don't want to come down to the downtown library, I think it's a perception of safety, right? I don't actually think that this space is unsafe. Most people keep to themselves, you know, do what they need to do when they come here. But so I do think it is a bit of a perception. I would welcome anybody to come back and give us another chance to come and experience this space.
Yeah, because as I said, at least my experience coming here with my son, we never had a bad experience. And honestly, like living here for 3 years, never once I had a bad experience. You know, I every day pass in front of Busby Center. I go to downtown sometimes at one in the morning. I love just take a walk. Never once I had a bad experience with people facing mental health issue or even under influence of substance. I did have bad experience with other young people who are coming out of nice restaurants downtown. So it's and I did bring that up a few times with the council as well. We're just going to shift the gear a little bit. So one of the things you mentioned about a lot of policies. So one thing came up. I think it was during the last city council budget discussion about book cancellation fee. But they, took the objection with why does the library doesn't have the book cancellation?
Oh, a library fine.
Yeah, library fine. Sorry, did I say book? Yeah. So library fine if you return the book late. Why doesn't? And I lived in other library system, and I saw other libraries taking off because I was at the Mississauga library once, and there was this one person returning a book, and there was he was returning late, and there was a fine. And I didn't expect. I was also late. I paid the fine immediately, but he was very upset, and I said very heated argument. He said, we are the taxpayer of the city. We pay the taxes, so why do we need the fine? We pay for the books, and if you are returning the book, late, so what? I am ultimately returning books. So that I have seen, as you said, making the policies that. Everybody feel welcome. So I think that's one of the point came up that why there isn't a fine when somebody returns the book late. What is your?
So right around the time when the pandemic started, around 2020, a lot of libraries started eliminating their fees for late items. So the reason for this was because it's a barrier. So it's a barrier to access. So if you picture, there's a family and they're struggling, they might hesitate to check out books at all because they're worried that if they are late, they'll have a fee that they can't pay. And we were often finding, somebody, they would just never come back again, right? They would borrow something, it was late, they couldn't pay the fee, so they would just stop using their library card. And it's not the deterrent that people think it is. So now we don't have late fees, and people return because they know someone else is waiting for it, right? So especially with popular materials that have lots of holds on them, people know that. So they do. Most people will do the right thing and will bring it back because they know that their neighbor, community member is waiting for that item. So. It doesn't make a huge difference, and it in terms of the income that we would receive from fines, it wasn't anything we could really rely on, right? You don't know how much you're going to collect. We didn't chase people to collect the money, so some of it was never recovered, and was never possible to be recovered. So it was sort of nice to have funds, but we were able to shuffle things around in terms of our budget and make it work so that we didn't have to lose out on that funding. And I will note that we didn't ask council for more money to make up for it. We shuffled the budget to work it out so that we could eliminate what we used to get from fines.
Yeah, so that brings me to the next point about during the recent the library budget has come up a lot during the especially during the recent council, since Mayor Alex Nuttall took the charge. I think during his very first address to the council, he mentioned about children's safety at the library. That was one of the points. But recently they passed a motion that came without notice, and the motion was about stopping the library from undertaking any capital projects.
The purpose of this motion is to ask service partners, specifically our library, to seek approval from City Council for a capital reserve spending moving forward. One of the City Council strategic plan priority is responsible governance. This change ensure our spending aligns with strategic goals and commitment to transparency and accountability.
The motion that I have in front of me reads only the library, but you mentioned the other service partners. Could you outline what service partners? All of our service partners? Would that include like Simcoe County and the police department?
Yeah, all service partners, but the motion is focused on the library.
And so just in terms of the background, when I was sitting at the city hall at that time. And after I talked to the residents about this, so this has come up a lot. During the recent council, a lot of important issues have come up without notice, without having the concerned parties to have any say in the matter. In this case, it was the library. The point also came up that library was not undertaking any capital work. When they put forward the motion. So some of the councillors, I believe Councillor Amy Koser and Councillor Anne-Marie Kangal, they mentioned if there is no work has been undertaken, why there is a need to do this. So in terms of, were you aware about or did you have any discussions about this particular subject about the capital work that has been undertaken?
Yeah, so at the May board meeting, library board meeting, we did, as a staff, we did bring forward a conversation with the board about refreshing the children's floor. So at this library, the shelving has been here since 1996, 30 years old, and just looking to make the space more flexible, more welcoming for children. So we did talk about that with the board. And at the time, we had originally discussed pulling some funds from the library reserves for that to fund that project. And in the end, what we decided on with the board, and we're happy with this decision, was that the board has agreed to have us come back with a plan and given us a bit of a budget for that. But there's no money that's been spent. And there's no money that's been approved to be spent. So the board has to approve any funds that are transferred from that reserve. There has to be a motion passed, and so they haven't passed a motion to move any funds from the reserve right now. We might look at it again in the fall, once we were able to put together a proposal and we can show the board what we have in mind, then they will say at that point, yes or no, they want to spend the money on the reserves. But now with this motion in place, we have to do a little bit more of a discussion, most likely with City of Barrie finance staff, just to see where we sit now in terms of that decision making.
As I mentioned, I visited other libraries, and especially the Midland Library that I visited. The children's section was, my son didn't want to come home. This is a nice Barrie section as well, but it was different for a town which has 18,000 population. That's what Do you feel because when it comes to adults, they can ask what they want. For children, you have to provide them, you have to expose them to different experiences. Unless you provide them, you said as the shelving has been here since 1996. Unless you upgrade, unless you provide that experience, they are not going to understand, that something better, experience that they can have. So is this decision in particular, like what was your reaction when council came up with this particular motion about the capital expenditure?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm disappointed that we couldn't have had a further conversation about it. I guess that's all I'll really say to that. But I will say too that since the motion, I have had more discussions with the mayor and with Councillor Nubusi around that motion and around the library reserve. So I feel confident that we'll come up with a solution that suits everybody's needs and something that still allows the library board to maintain their decision making.
Yeah, one of the things, very bizarre thing that came up, and everybody was taken aback that the shelves library has very expensive shelves. And so I didn't really understand the point, and I tried to reach to the council. I haven't heard back. So what was how do you think the issue is? What the issue is, and what is the controversy behind it?
Yeah, so I'm guessing you're referring to, like, in 2021 we refreshed the Painswick Library. It was set up very traditionally, linear rows of shelving, and so we wanted to increase our sight line so that you could, from one end of the library, the staff could see to the other side. And so, that requires lowering the height of shelving. And then there's libraries, like any industry, they change and the standards change. So now what is becoming more common is a style that is to lead the patron through the space and promote a browsing of the collection and selecting materials. So when all of your items are in a row and you can only see the spines of the books, it makes it harder to know what's there. So if we can highlight what's there by showing more of the covers, and especially for kids, kids are not choosing it based on the title of the book. They're choosing it based on what it looks like, the cover of the book. And so having more of that face out is important. I think it's also important to note that the shelving and furniture that we purchase is institutional, right? Like it's not the same level of furniture that you would buy for your home. Okay, it has to withstand hundreds, if not thousands, of uses. So because of that, it's more expensive, right? It does cost a lot.
So you mean other library systems buy the same stuff? That's
other library systems buy
the
same stuff.
Okay.
Absolutely, for sure. It is sold to libraries specifically. Like there are library furniture vendors that we buy from, and they build things to last for public use, right? They're meant for that longevity. So I guess in terms of Painswick, all we have heard from on our side from patrons is how beautiful it is. How beautiful it is, how welcoming it feels, how much easier it is to see what there is available. And I think bringing that same sort of welcoming feel to the downtown library is important. And again, it's part of the master facilities plan that was created with a previous council, but created in partnership with the city. So in that sense, we are only bringing forward this idea. It's part of that plan, and if we can make this space even better, then we should, I think.
So wouldn't it had helped if you had this opportunity to explain this in front of the council for the entire city to know the reasons behind? Because the impression I got was from what I heard that these are just shiny shelves. Like because what I'm hearing from is accessibility is the major thought behind purchasing these shelves. I hope people watch this video and maybe you get this opportunity to explain. And one of the other thing especially Councillor Gary Harvey mentioned what about some equipment in some staff bought very expensive equipments. I didn't provide the explanation, but
And if I didn't have concerns about maybe what I would say excessive spending in areas that don't need to be happening, then I wouldn't even be talking like this. But even during the Holly process, they were ordering high-end appliances for their staff room that I can't even afford to put in my own house.
do you know what he was referring to?
Yeah, for sure. So when we built the library in Holly, we have a very tiny staff room in that location. It's a small, it's 4,500 square feet. So we wanted to make sure that we had as much available to the public as possible. So it's a small staff room, and because it's a small staff room, it needed to have a small fridge. It's like an apartment size fridge. And at the time we were building Holly, appliances were very hard to come by. So, and we've talked.
Was that during the pandemic?
Yeah, it was 2021.
Okay, yeah,
I think.
yeah, that's right.
So we have had this conversation with Councillor Harvey too, and just we had to order two to make sure that we got one. Okay, we didn't pay for two; we only paid for one. And to be honest, the one that we paid for was the less expensive option. So again, institutional use is different than home use, but still, it was. I can't offhand think of what the brand name is of the fridge that we have there, but it was the less expensive, option.
Because he said, he said, I wouldn't buy this stuff for my own use. And, everybody, I was sitting there, everybody else I talked to said, that is usually the case when you are buying for an institution.
Yeah.
I work for various companies, and the number of people use a particular equipment is so high because the camera I use it's not the camera that I have for my personal use because I use this a lot. It is handled by other people. I would want to know about in terms of you mentioned the a lot of women staffs, a lot of women leadership at the library. So how in terms of managing the library with the women leadership as well as interacting with the outside organization, because I was at the Innisfil covering one event about the Women's Day, and the Innisfil mayor, I'm blanking her name right now.
Lynn Dolan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Innisfil mayor said, when she goes to an event, and everybody's asking, we talk to the mayor of Midland or other town, where is the mayor of Innisfil? And she said, I'm sometimes right in front of them, but they are looking for gray haired, white middle-aged man.
Okay.
And that makes she shared her experience how that makes her difficult for her to communicate, interact, and represent her city as a challenge as a woman. So as as a leader, you are as a leader of Barrie Public Library, as well as this is much of the staff is led by women. So what are the challenges you face in terms of dealing with organizations or matter within and outside?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose as a woman leader, I do have to display more confidence maybe in certain situations, and I'm working on that to try to make sure that my voice is heard in situations. I do think though there are a lot of other women leaders in other libraries across the country that I look up to and have lots of great conversations with about the way that we do things and moving forward. So I don't think it really makes a difference that I'm a female leader and I have a great team around me, male and female, and it's really just in the work that we do, I guess, that I'm hoping that people see the value in the work that we do rather than our gender.
Yeah, thank you. And then just my last couple of questions about, you talked about, the expansion plans the library has. So what is your vision as the CEO of the library, when it comes to the next year, next 5 years, or how do you see, as the city is, exponentially growing, how do you see the library system evolve along with that?
Yeah, so I've been in this role for about 6 years now, and it's still really exciting. There's still so much more growth that we can achieve in Barrie, and I think following through on our plans and gaining that support for future branches is really important. Because I guess the ultimate goal is to make sure that library service is convenient for everybody. I think a lot of times, if it's not easy, you're not going to take advantage of it. So, yes, we offer everything, a free library card, and everything that we offer is available to check out free of charge. But if it's not convenient to access, sometimes people won't bother. So that's the ultimate goal, is making it accessible to everyone in the community within the means that we have, right? So we obviously have to be mindful of our budget and of our staff capacity, but as best we can do to offer that within our means, that's what we'll do.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.